A.T. Bowen of the Tampa Bay Times. I want to thank and welcome the viewers tuning in to the Tampa Bay Chamber's 2020 Virtual Candidate Forum Series. The Tampa Bay Chamber focuses on policy, not politics, and while they do not endorse, this forum serves as a means to make sure its members and the business community are informed on where candidates stand on the issues that are important to businesses. Today, we're excited to have the candidates for Hillsborough Board of County Commissioners, District 3 with us. And I'd like to welcome Gwen Myers.
Thank you.
Rick Fernandez and Thomas Scott. Thank you all for joining us. And now we'll go to the first question, which is really kind of an easy one. And that is, we're just 6 weeks from Election Day. Can you give us a brief update on your campaign and what's the message you want to deliver to the voters in this final stretch? And we'll start with Rick Fernandez.
Well, in the 45 seconds that I have, in the final stretch to the August 18 primary election, we are busily engaged in getting the message out regarding the pillars of our campaign, which are to enhance and protect neighborhoods, deliver robust public transit, and when we're ready to convert I-275 north of the downtown interchange to a grand boulevard known as Boulevard Tampa. I'll address deliverables and address any questions in closing. I'm a native of Tampa and a lawyer by training. I look forward to the questions and getting to know all of you better.
Thank you. Gwen Myers, same question.
Thank you for having me. It's been very exciting and very not challenging to get my message out to the people. Since this year started, I've been able to contact super voters, get my message out via my platform of what I'm running on, talking with voters, and also letting them know that transportation, affordable housing, and healthcare in that order are the three top primary concerns that I have for District 3, and to make sure District 3 prosper like other districts of the county. I'm a retiree from Hillsborough County government, working there for 25 years, and I'm the only candidate in this race who has qualified by petition.
Thank you. Same question, Thomas Scott.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity. Let me just say today, Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa are going through a major transformation. And so our community is in need of experienced leadership that can assure that the residents of District 3 are not left out or left behind. And not only that, but also we don't have time for on-the-job training. We need someone who's ready to hit the ground running, who understands county government and the county budget process. I am that person that is most ready. I have served on the county commission 10 years, from 96 to 2006. I served 3 terms as chairman. I served on the Tampa City Council and served 3 terms as chairman of Tampa City Council. And so I bring a lot of wealth and an experience to the county, and I look forward to going back, working with the county commission to move us forward to address the issue of transportation, affordable housing, economic redevelopment, healthcare, and childcare. Those are important issues for our community and for District 3.
Thank you, sir. This first question will go to Mr. Scott. The topic is jobs. How can county government use its authority and its resources to direct job growth?
Yeah, the county historically has worked with the chamber or the Economic Development Council to bring in fact, when I was on the board, we went out to other states, other jurisdictions, and what we did was recruited them to come into Hillsborough County. We also used the QTI, Qualified Tax Incentive, so that when businesses came into the county, there was an incentive for them to create jobs, high-paying jobs, so that people could be employed and have a livable wage. And so I believe that we have to continue to build upon that, but also we have to create what we're retaining those businesses that are here now. We not only got to create new jobs, opportunity, new businesses, but we also got to retain the ones that are existing. As you very well know, with the challenge of the pandemic, there are over 50 million people that are unemployed. So it's very important that the county again, retain those businesses that are here and also attract new businesses to our community.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Fernandez, same question.
Thank you very much. I'll focus on the issue that is really central to the campaign for me, and that is transit and transportation as the circulatory system for a vital metro area. Transit touches everything. And if we can get solid transit into the neighborhoods, with that will flow transit-oriented development. And with that, enhancement of local businesses and workforce development. I also believe that we need to be incentivizing development in particular in those areas that have been marginalized over the generations, and that incentivization should include requirements for delivery of job opportunities to the local residents to ensure that 1 and 1 equals 5 for a change. That would be certainly a focus for me.
Gwen Myers, same question.
Yes, with workforce development and corporations moving here, relocating here to Tampa, one of the things I will support is a phase-in incentive. Many times corporations move here, do not honor their deliverables in the agreement between the county and the corporation. And so the phase-in would not allow the county to give all the funds up front. But with jobs, I would like to see them come in here, and we offer more manufacturing jobs, more solar jobs, and also help grow the local community and provide funding for them.
Thank you. We'll stay right here, Gwen Myers. This next question, we'll start with you. And the topic is home rule. Local governments across the state have been critical of the legislature in recent years, suggesting that there is a, quote, Tallahassee knows best, close quote, mentality that is threatening home rule. Do you agree this is the case? If yes, how would you as a county commissioner work to establish a productive relationship with our delegation? If no, then how do you explain some of the legislation that's been filed in recent years that handicaps local governments?
Thank you for the question, and that's a tough question. Working with that delegation to ensure that the home rules, where that the state legislatures does not continue to hold the county back in so many ways that we cannot function on local government translations or for their requirements. I would say yes, I would support and work with the delegation to ensure that the county, what the county is asking as a county commission, that the rules become in effect for all the citizens and for the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, that's historically though. That's been the issue even when I was there, that you had that problem with the legislative delegation, unfunded mandates and all of that across the board. I think it's very important, one, that we must insist on home rule, okay? The second thing I think we have to do is, as a board, see, one person can't do it, but the board must be willing to work with the Hillsborough delegation to make sure they understand clearly what our position is regarding home rule and how we expect for them to help us carry out the responsibilities that we have versus giving us unfunded mandate, which was a huge issue. When I was on the Board of County Commission, we had all these state unfunded mandates that somewhat crippled the county government, because then we had to provide the funding for those legislature issues that were passed. And so, yes, I believe in home rule. I believe that we got to work with the delegation, Hillsborough County delegation, to make sure they clearly understand how important home rule is, and that they have to make sure they go and represent us in Tallahassee.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez, same question, home rule.
Thank you for the question. Well, we're a charter county, which would suggest we have certain home rule powers, which We do, at least if you're reading it about it in the textbooks. Unfortunately, the buzzword here that nobody has mentioned yet, but I'm sure only by oversight, is preemption. And that is a problem. The Reverend has mentioned the issue of unfunded mandates, also another way to restrain the county government and its opportunities to deliver services to residents and constituents. As far as how to approach it, absolutely, we have to work collegially with the delegation, not only our local, but on a statewide basis. Hopefully there's a way to bridge a gap between Democrat and Republican, although that seems increasingly difficult these days. It's a necessity. And I also would work very hard to develop buy-in by stakeholders, not the politicians, but the individuals on the ground who are affected by these policies, to ensure that they bring pressure to bear on their elected officials throughout the county and the city government.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez, we'll stay right here. This question is for you. The topic is transportation. There's been a lot of discussion on merging MPOs and creating a regional planning group. As you know, the Metropolitan Planning Organizations are federally mandated authority that plans transportation projects. What are your thoughts on merging our region's MPOs into a single entity?
I have been consistently opposed to that idea from the day it was born. I don't remember how long it's been on the table, but I've been on the MPO Citizens Advisory Committee for 3 years by appointment of Commissioner Miller, representing District 3. And this issue keeps on coming up in terms of updates to us. Frankly, I don't see any productive future for that idea. We have very different needs within our region, city to city, county to county. Our own MPO has a difficult enough time addressing the issues that we deal with here in Hillsborough County. I think it would be absolutely nightmarish if we had a singular MPO trying to address those issues for the entire region. I think it's a failed idea, and the sooner we put it to bed, the better.
Thank you. Gwen Myers, same question.
Okay, I would not support the planning the MPO in the region. It would not address the county's issue. The county can continue to stand alone with the MPO department to address issues on behalf of the county.
Thank you. Mr. Scott, same question.
Not a new issue. It came up when I was on the Board of County Commissioners for the MPO, and it was shot down then. And I continue to support the present MPO by Hillsborough County. I think that's very important. However, I think given regionalism that we might be able to work with T-Barter, okay? And let me be clear that we said we're gonna work with T-Barter, but we've gotta make sure that everybody is paying their fair share, whatever T-Barter comes out with. And I'm not so sure what they're doing these days because I think their funding just got cut not too long ago. But so you already have a mechanism with T-Barter in place, which is supposed to be a regional board to address some of the transportation issues. And again, I don't have a problem with working with T-Barter, but keep in mind that everybody that comes to the table need to pay their own fair share. But I do support the existing Hillsborough County Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Thank you, sir. We'll stay right here with you, Mr. Scott, and the topic remains transportation. The MPO just last week adopted the 5-year work program and set its priority projects for the coming years. One of those priority projects drew a lot of public comment, and that's the widening of Interstate 275 that's known as Tampa Next, with the rebuild of the I-4 interchange. So what are your thoughts on including the Tampa Next highway widening in the work program?
I think that is important when we talk about transportation. I know those that are opposed to it, but keep in mind what I have discovered and come to understand that the improvement to 275, the footprint will not change and will not encroach upon Seminole Heights or Tampa Heights. So I want to be clear with that. So they are talking about improving 75 without changing the footprint now of 275 where it will encroach in upon the neighborhood. You know, we are moving fast, and transportation was an issue 20 years ago. It's an issue now, and it's going to continue to be an issue until we begin to address some of these needs that we have. We have, you know, $9 billion worth of needs for transportation, and so it's important that we begin to look at that.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez, same question.
Thank you, sir. I am, if not on record on this issue, I suppose I'm not on record on anything. Over the last 5 years, I have been vocally opposed to the Tampa Bay Next project, as it is now known, originally rolled out as Tampa Bay Express. The expansion of the I-275, I-4 corridors through the urban core of Tampa. I think the problem we have here is one of definition, and some folks use it as an escape valve. Others use it, I think, because they simply don't understand the difference. When we oppose expansion of the interstate, we're not just talking about the right-of-way expansion, although that certainly is critical. We're also talking about expansion of capacity, adding lanes to the highway, which in turn brings more cars, more pollution, and more noise to the neighborhoods. The communities that have been primarily impacted by the interstate and that are primarily impacted by the proposed changes under the TB Next program have been upfront and loud about their opposition to this. I stand with them and will continue to stand with them. It was a mistake to have that included in the TIP in the first place, and it should have been removed by vote of the MPO last week.
Thank you, sir. Gwen Myers, same question.
I would oppose any interstate expansion that displaces people in the neighborhoods. I've spoken in public hearings in the last 3 years about the TBX projects. And to this day, I still stand to say that I'm not supporting any expansion of Interstate 275. The citizens of Hillsborough County continue to make it very clear that they do not want any expansion in their neighborhoods, and they do not want to be displaced.
Thank you. We've been joined by Sky White. Did you hear the question?
I got the last part of the question. I was having a lot of connectivity issues. If you could repeat it for me, please.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's come back to that, but I want to give you 45 seconds or so to give some opening remarks. Just give voters an update on your campaign and what you're doing in the final stretch.
Yes. So also a candidate running for Hillsborough County Commissioner, District 3. I'm a full-time nurse. I'm a mother. I'm also a District 3 homeowner, lifelong Hillsborough County resident. We're less than 40 days from the election, and we've picked up 2 national endorsements. We picked up an endorsement from the Run for Something as well as Democracy for America. We've been endorsed by IBEW Local 824 as well. We've reached a milestone in our campaign with over 700 donations with an average donation amount of $37. So we're strong grassroots. We're out in the community, active and making sure that we're addressing the concerns of the voters in District 3.
Thank you. And then the question was, the Metropolitan Planning Organization last week approved its 5-year work program, which included, also set its future priorities. And those priorities included what's known as the Tampa Bay Next, and that was the expansion of the I-275 highway and the rebuild of the I-4 interchange. There was a lot of vocal opposition to it at the hearing. It was included in the plan anyway. So I would like to get your thoughts on that Tampa Bay Next project.
Well, I sit on the MPO Citizens Advisory Board along with Rick Fernandez, and this has been a long-standing issue. There has been years of opposition for the expansion of 275, and if we look at the history of widening interstates, we know that anytime that you're building an interstate, widening an interstate, you're going to decimate an entire community. 275 within itself creates a lot of pollution. It creates air pollution and noise pollution, and it is not helpful for the residents who live around that area. I live within, I would say, a couple hundred feet of I-75, and I feel the brunt of what happens when we build an interstate through a community. So I have never supported the TB Next project, and I am disappointed that it also was included in the TIP. I wish that we would come up with more modern plans to be able to move around from point A to point B. We've always discussed the multimodal transit option. I would like to see more of those plans put forward.
Thank you. New question, and this will go to Gwen Myers. And the topic is the budget. The key duty of the county commissioners is to construct, approve, and implement a budget. What one area of county services would you feel most needs additional resources? And should any part of the county budget be shielded from budget cuts?
The one that I would say that would need additional funds would be the social services and housing. With the budget cut, the county has done a tremendous job in making sure that funding for all services have been available for construction projects as well as social services projects. I would like to see that the county continue to add more money in the social services, in particular with COVID-19, where individuals who have lost reduction in the workforce, have lost their wages, that we have money to continue to help them with paying their rent, mortgage, or utilities.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, historically, most of the time when you start cutting, we always want to cut social services, first. I think we have to be very careful about really making any cuts until you understand what the prioritization will be in the budget. I think you have to look at the budget because there are certain things you cannot cut under the Constitution and that sort of thing. Okay, that's number one. Number two is that you got to look at all of your services. And you have to prioritize them and figure out which of those services that you're going to fund that's going to become a priority for you or for the county. The other thing, keep in mind, it takes 4 votes on the county commission to pass the budget. No matter what is in there, it takes 4 votes, take 4 commissioners to be able to do that. And so my feeling is that one is that you want to prioritize, look at the budget, prioritize. 2 is you want to look at and make sure that you are protecting your most vulnerable. Okay, many times you're poor, left out. Right now we're going through this pandemic. All of that going to come into play. Healthcare going to come into play. And so there are a number of county services that will be at risk coming this budget cycle. And again, keep it in mind, the county function on a 2-year budget cycle.
Thank you. Same question to Sky White.
Okay, when speaking of resources that needs additional funding, it's always housing. Making sure that we have affordable housing for our working middle class. COVID-19 shined a bright light on just how fragile our economy is and just how closely our residents are living paycheck to paycheck. That was one thing that we need additional resources for, making sure that we have affordable housing for our working middle class. And what could be cut, I've never been a big fan of budget cuts because that would pose a negative impact on resources and possibly jobs. But if there has to be a cut, then we need to look and see what resources are not being utilized, and maybe we can consider cutting back on those. But I think we need to look at the budget holistically and all of the resources holistically to see if we can safely initiate any budget cuts.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez, same question. County budget.
Thank you, sir. I don't know how many on this call are aware that we are talking about a budget in excess of $6 billion. Frankly, that was a bit of an epiphany for me as well when I dug into the budget a while back. And certainly we're going to be facing some challenges in the post-COVID world to meet our financial challenges. When I look at the various issues regarding objects for funding, I have to apply my values and principles to that, and they're outlined in our campaign pillars. And the things that I would identify, they mirror to some degree what Sky has said. Affordable housing. I would also address and look to protect funding for safe food, access to safe food. We have food deserts in District 3. A lot of people don't realize that. Healthcare and access to jobs that pay a living wage. If I have to identify one thing that I would want to protect from all possible budget cuts, well, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? But for me, I suppose it would have to be a toss-up between affordable housing and healthcare. And transportation is clearly near and dear to my heart since it touches all of that. So I would be looking to protect that as well.
Thank you. We'll address this next question to Sky White. And the topic is equity. It would be, name an issue in Hillsborough County that directly impacts or is directly impacted by race and equity. And explain how the county can incorporate an equity framework in addressing this issue.
Okay, I got parts of the question because you cut out. You said, repeat that for me.
Okay, I'll repeat it, ma'am. I'll repeat it. Name one issue in Hillsborough County that directly impacts or is directly impacted by race and equity. And explain how the county can incorporate an equity framework in addressing this issue.
Okay. District 3 is the most marginalized district in Hillsborough County. It is also the poorest district in Hillsborough County. It is also the most neglected district in Hillsborough County. So when we talk about race equity, we can look at the different pockets of the district, East Tampa, West Tampa, Brandon, Riverview, and we can broadly see the disparities between equity if you look at Brandon, Riverview, and then compare that to East Tampa and West Tampa. There are disparities in housing, disparities in transportation. The District 3 residents need equitable transportation more than any district in the county. There's disparities in small businesses. We have District 3 business owners who've been in business for decades, and they're still not able to get the funding that they need to survive. When we look at other pockets of District 3, that appears to be flooded with funding. What the county needs to do is make sure that we have someone on the Board of County Commission that's advocating for this marginalized community. We can't keep electing the same people that's had the opportunity to build equity and chose not to. So that's step number one. Step number two is getting citizens involved, getting all of District 3 involved, having town hall meetings. One thing I will do once elected, having town hall meetings with our residents to find out what is it that we can do and come up with collectively to make sure that our residents are not left out.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez, same question.
Thank you, sir. A caveat in this arena, frankly, I think we have an embarrassment of riches that we could choose from if we're looking for something that identifies race and equity together. The one issue that I will identify is environmental equity. If I have to choose something out of the box, we need to stop identifying communities that are open to be sacrificed for the good of others. That is what has been happening in this county now for generations. It's what happened when the interstate came through here in the 60s. Minority communities were sacrificed for the good of the community. I doubt that the minority communities felt that way. I know living in Tampa Heights at the time, my parents didn't feel that way. We need to be more focused on communities of concern. We need to understand where those communities of concern are. Not coincidentally, many of them are actually living in the path of these interstate corridors. And definitionally, that is the marker of environmental inequity. It is unsafe, pollution, comorbidities that individuals suffer. The interstate is a pollution factory, and the Department of Transportation's answer is to make it bigger. This is inequity incarnate. I'll put a pin in it there.
Thank you. Gwen Myers, same question.
Okay, when we look at race and equity in District 3, we all know that District 3 has not prospered like other districts of the county. With good paying jobs, our business owners always complaining about they don't have the same opportunity to prosper their business like other people that in other districts of the county. When it comes to housing and transportation, a lot of the people in District 3 waits forever to catch a bus in the district. When we look at race and equality, we must find a way to balance both of these issues so that District 3 could prosper like other districts of the county. We need to make sure we have good paying jobs, affordable housing, and health care in District 3 for people.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
We have to make sure when we talk about race and injustice and equity and all that, I think the number one issue becomes jobs, employment opportunity. if you allow me to work as any other citizen, no matter what the color of your skin is, and make the same amount of money, then I will have the same opportunity to be able to buy a home, to buy a vehicle, to be able to buy my own food, to be able to do the things that I need to do for my family. So it's important for us to understand that the issue is about having the same opportunity when it comes to employment and job opportunity. And when you have equity in that, that affords me to be able to take care of my family, take care of my children, provide for my household. And so I think that becomes the big issue. And so the county has to address the issue, which I went to the Board of County Commission, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and put on the table, which they voted 7-0 to address the issue of racism and racial injustice, okay? And the one thing I want to do when I first get there is to have a race, relation, and economic symposium that will address this issue so that we are all talking the same language and people can understand that it's about having the same opportunity as every citizen in Hillsborough County, no matter where you live.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Scott, we'll stay right here and you can take the next question, please.
Okay.
The topic is housing. Housing affordability advocates come out in strong numbers to the commission meetings, and they highlight some staggering numbers suggesting that if we don't act, we're going to have a housing crisis in our community. Do you think we have a housing affordability crisis? And if so, what policy measures should be in place to address it?
In 2006, actually 2005, I got the Board of County Commission to vote on having a whole study. We spent about 8-9 months on the whole issue of workforce housing and affordable housing. The board adopted at that point the plan and the ordinance to put in place where we now have the Affordable Housing Committee that reports directly to the Board of County Commission, and you have a commissioner that sits on that and chairs that, okay? Because I set it up, the board voted on it to address the whole issue of affordable housing. It's been a crisis on affordable housing back then in 2004, 2005. That's why we had this study done. There's an affordable housing issue now that's ongoing. In fact, the Board of County Commission just put, $10 million into the program that I established with the other Board of County Commission at that time, $10 million to address the issue of affordable housing, which $10 million sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but it's not to continue to address the ongoing issue of affordable housing. Yes, it is an issue, and it continues to be an issue, and we're going to continue to have to deal with it, and we can work with it through this Affordable Housing Committee that's been in place since 2006.
Thank you. Sky White, same question, affordable housing.
Yes. First, I want to say I'm glad that we have established a committee, as well as the Board of County Commission voted to dedicate $10 million to affordable housing. And although Bishop Scott states that he created this back in 2005, 2006, housing prices has increased 114% since. Your average one-bedroom apartment is over $1,200 in the community where I live. 48% of the residents of District 3 spend more than half of their income on housing. So the question is, what has happened since 2005 since then? Are we in an affordable housing crisis? Yes, we are. What can we do to mitigate this crisis? It's building relationships with our state legislators, building healthy relationships with nonprofit developers and affordable housing developers so that they're able to gain access not only to funds, federal funds, but also money here in the county so that they can spend, so that they have money to spend on affordable housing projects. We cannot continue on this path knowing that the average income here in Hillsborough County is a little over $50,000. One bedroom apartment is $1,200. So yes, we've reached the crisis. We absolutely have to do something. $10 million is great, but as Bishop Scott stated, $10 million is really just a drop in the bucket when you have a 1.4 million resident county and half of them are living paycheck to paycheck, barely able to make rent. So what I would propose doing, working with our state legislators, making sure that we're able to get as much federal funds as possible, building healthy relationships with nonprofit developers and affordable housing developers to give access to those funds so that they can create more affordable housing projects for our working middle class.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez, same question, affordable housing.
Thank you, sir. Well, we seem to have universal agreement among the candidates, and I suspect about most people out there listening. Yes, we do have an affordable housing crisis in Hillsborough County and throughout the state and country, for that matter. I was very glad to see the Hope Affordable Housing Ordinance actually get some funding. We've made reference to that. Reverend Scott made reference to it earlier. And I was particularly happy to see the model that is being pursued there, which is really the definition of transit-oriented development. I don't know that the county commission necessarily intended that, but that's what they got, because what they're incentivizing, at least as portion of the incentivization for developers, is to develop housing that is mixed use, mixed income, near transit facilities, and near work centers. That is almost definitionally transit-oriented development. If we can push that idea out into the neighborhoods with robust transit into those neighborhoods and allow transit-oriented development to work its magic in those neighborhoods to enhance them, I think we will also have an opportunity to encourage developers to develop like affordable housing in those areas. Also, historic preservation figures in, reconstituting buildings that allow fabric of the community to be maintained in a sense of place. Repurposing those to affordable housing units, I think, is also important. There's a panoply of inventive things that can be done. It's simply a question of will. But yes, it's an item that needs to be scheduled for solution, and I absolutely will work on that.
Thank you. Gwen Myers, same question, affordable housing.
Let me say, I was very elated to see that the county put the $10 million with the whole project. I was at the board meeting when that happened. But we also should make sure that as we work with our legislatures, that we continue to make sure that the Sadowski funds come to Hillsborough County. That way we can help more families with our housing crisis. Affordable housing, when I was working for the county almost 15 years ago, we didn't say affordable housing, it was just housing. And today we know that we have hit a super roadblock for affordable, because with the rent being sky high, that they cannot pay a mortgage note. And so making sure that we offer the subsidy for families to be able to qualify to become a homeowner. And when I'm elected, I like to add another $5 million or $10 million in that investment for our affordable housing program, because that's what the citizens are saying in District 3. They want to become a homeowner.
Thank you. We're getting a little pressed for time, so very quickly, I'd like each of you to just give your contact information and your website so voters can be able to find out more about you and the issues that are important to them. And I'll start with Rick Fernandez, please.
Well, my contact information, you might be able to see right behind me on the sign. The website is www.rickfor3.com. And I am certainly available for any questions, individual consultation, conferences, phone calls, Zoom meetings, or anything else that you would care to be involved with. The pillars of our campaign and the goals of this campaign are detailed literally in the weeds at the website. Okay. Thank you.
Quickly, please. Gwen Myers, same question. Your contact information, website.
My contact information is votegwenmyers.com. If you have any questions, you can call me at 813-625-6550 regarding my campaign.
Thank you, ma'am. Thomas Scott?
Yes, mine is electthomasscott.com. Again, and electthomasscott.com. You can reach me there. We have a whole web page, as well as Facebook, social media, and all of that, where you can contact us, and we'll certainly respond to any question that anyone may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Sky White?
Yes, you can follow me on Facebook under Sky U White for County Commission District 3. My website is www.skyuwhite.com. I can be emailed at electskyuwhite@gmail.com, and my phone number is 813-586-0620.
Thank you. This will be our final question, and we'll stay right here and start with you, Sky White. Basically, this will be your closing statement, but also want to give you the opportunity, if there's an issue that we didn't touch that you want to talk about, please feel free to bring it up now. Or if you want to talk about what you think is the most critical issue that the county's facing and how you would help address it, that would be fine too. And we'll start with.
I think the most critical issue that the county is facing is housing. I always use the example of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Security is at the very bottom of the pyramid. And making sure that our residents have housing is what's critical. Making sure that they have stability within their families. And that's something that once elected to the Board of County Commission, I will be a strong advocate for affordable housing. I also want to make sure that everyone knows that, we're in a different day and age here in 2020, especially in politics, local politics. And I think it's time that we really start electing people that's going to move our county forward, electing people who's able to reach all across the aisles, not just within District 3, but as you know, once elected, when we sit on the Board of County Commission, we're going to be voting for all of the district. So we need to make sure that we have someone who has a holistic view of all of the issues throughout Hillsborough County, and someone who's going to aggressively and tenaciously fight for those residents. And that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be your fighter.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
Yes, sir. I would say the most pressing issue again is economic development, job creation. You give me a job where I'm making a livable wage, I'm able to take care of my family, I'm able to go out and buy a house. If I don't have no income, I can't buy nothing. I can't even get a car, can't get a house, can't get anything. And so economic development, there has to be a strategy for economic development. When we talk about that, we're talking about job creation, job retention, retaining the job that's in place. We're talking about then I'm able to address the issue of affordability of housing, because now I have employment and I'm making a wage whereby I can afford to pay my mortgage. And then also about transportation infrastructure, all of that improvement, all of that relates to a strategy regarding economic development. And so my record, now people want to challenge me and all that, but if you go back and check my record, I am the only person in this race who has successfully served on the Board of County Commission, made significant impact in terms of the community redevelopment areas in East Tampa, Tampa Heights, on down to Ybor City, Channelside, Drew Park. Go look at it. Those are tools you use for economic development and economic prosperity. Go out in Progress Village, see the land that we purchased to build the Larry Sanders park out there. I mean, across the board. Just go look at my record and see the accomplishment that we made when we was on the Board of County Commission. I look forward to going back to represent District 3. Thank you so very much for having me.
Thank you, sir. Gwen Myers?
I would say my number one issue is transportation. The voters in 2018 voted to tax themselves 1%, by 57% of the voters. And today, we still have and stuck in traffic for Hillsborough County. We need to make sure that we expand our bus services, like to see conversion of the CXX rail converted to freight rail. We need to make sure that our roads are improved, that everyone can walk and have a walkable and safe community as well. For pedestrian crossing and other safety improvements. Transportation is the number one issue in Hillsborough County. As an elected official, I will lead the way. Transportation is the greatest need, and people have spoken. The citizens of Hillsborough County have spoken very clearly that they want transportation and tax themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Rick Fernandez.
Thank you, sir. I'll take this opportunity to deliver what might otherwise have been an opening. I'm a native of Tampa Heights, Jesuit, University of Florida, Stetson Law, round out the educational pedigree. I've made my living in the legal industry since 1978, starting out in the Navy Judge Advocate General's Corps. I served as president of the Hillsborough County Bar. I've served as president of the Tampa Heights Civic Association and currently serve as vice chair of the MPO CAC. As I've noted earlier, I was animated to enter the public arena by the TBX project when it rolled out in 2015. My opposition to that has evolved into the pillars of our campaign, which I have already addressed. The key issues I think that need to be identified and focused upon are transportation, housing, jobs, and healthcare, all of which are deliverables under our pillars and I think are consistent with the needs of the county. I very much appreciate your time and attention, and I ask for your support.
Thank you. On behalf of the Chamber's 1,400 members and its board of directors, we want to thank you for joining us today and for your willingness to serve in an elected office. This concludes our forum. Thank you.